And this Monday night, Israel's allies sound off about Gaza's escalating starvation as Israel allows a small amount of aid in.
That's real starvation stuff. I see it. You can't fake that.
The U.S. president's idea on how to change how food is distributed. Pressure mounts on Canada to strike a trade deal with the U.S.
It's a complex negotiation.
The hopes Canada can score a better agreement than the EU. Bear encounters, the BC man attacked, and one couple's close call, a reminder on how to stay safe. Plus, golden summer, Canadian swimming sensation Summer MacIntosh's new triumphs.
She's a cool customer, isn't she?
And her quest to do something no other woman has done before.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Under intense pressure from abroad and at home, Israel agreed to pause attacks on Gaza for a few hours today and allow in a minimal amount of aid. And for the first time, the American president, Israel's strongest ally, acknowledged Palestinians are starving. Some aid is being airdropped into Gaza, but it's a fraction of what's needed. Multiple aid organizations and human rights groups have warned the levels of malnutrition are alarming. Yet Israel's prime minister says it is a bold-faced lie to accuse Israel of conducting a campaign of starvation in Gaza. Today, the U.S. president, meeting with the British prime minister, was asked if he agreed.
Based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry.
It's an absolute catastrophe.
Do you think
nobody wants to see that, and I think people in Britain are revolted at seeing what they're seeing on their screens.
And it's those images that are pressuring international leaders to act and try to force Israel to allow humanitarian aid agencies back into Gaza before more Palestinians die from hunger. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
Day 2 of Israel's military pauses in parts of Gaza. It says 120 trucks like these entered Sunday. More airdrops too, although eye-catching, one of these planes only carries about half of what a truck can. And dropping pallets has the potential to injure and kill. The United Nations says much more aid is needed. At least 500 trucks a day. And it says many of the trucks that have entered were immediately looted by desperate people. They throw the aid and those who are strong can get it. But people like us who are old can't, says this man.
Children are dying from starvation, and it's man-made by Israel from A to Z.
Israel allowing more aid in comes after weeks of international pressure and accusations that it has been blocking aid.
What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza.
But on Monday, Israel's biggest ally and backer contradicted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that.
U.S. President Donald Trump also appeared to suggest changing how aid is distributed.
So we're going to set up food centers and where the people can walk in.
That sounds like it would more closely resemble conventional humanitarian aid distribution. The UN says 1,000 people across Gaza have been killed trying to get food in the past 2 months, since the US and Israeli-backed GHF began operating privately run aid hubs inside Gazan combat zones.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Neetu Garcha says she has asked Israel for assurances Canadian aid will be allowed into Gaza. She is currently attending a 3-day conference in New York that aims to plan for a 2-state solution between Israel and Palestine. Donna?
All right, Redmond Shannon in London, thanks. Two of Israel's best-known rights groups who have long been critical of Israeli policy now say Israel's government is engaged in a clear, intentional attack on civilians in order to destroy Palestinians in Gaza. And Western allies, they say, have a legal and moral duty to stop it.
We have been witnessing a reality that has left us no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Beit Salem and Physicians for Human Rights Israel published a report titled Our Genocide. It builds the case based on Article 2C of the UN Genocide Convention, which defines that genocide can occur through deliberate, systemic, and infrastructural means, not only through mass killings.
Systematic destruction of the healthcare system, denial of access to food, blocking of medical evacuations, and using humanitarian aid to advance military targets all indicate a clear pattern of conduct.
Israel's government has rejected the accusation, calling it baseless and saying there is no intent. The U.S. president is using a trip to one of his golf courses in Scotland for some high-stakes diplomacy. He met the British Prime Minister there today and the president of the European Commission on the weekend, announcing what he calls the biggest deal ever on trade. It sets a 15% tariff on most goods imported from Europe, and Canada is watching closely. As Mackenzie Gray reports, the deadline to strike a deal with Trump is Friday.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
A cheery Mark Carney ahead of what's shaping up to be his most challenging week as Prime Minister.
The negotiations are at an intense phase. It's a complex negotiation.
That intensity set to peak Friday ahead of Donald Trump's ultimatum. Cut a deal with the U.S. or face a 35% tariff on non-free trade goods. But that percentage might be heading down.
I just want to be nice. I would say in the range of 15 to 20%. It's the biggest deal ever made. Thank you very much.
Those numbers, what the European Union and Japan got from the president, on top of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of other concessions in exchange for a lower U.S. tariff. A similar deal would seriously damage the Canadian economy.
There is a landing zone that's possible, but we have to get there, and we'll see what happens.
Probably the most pro-American Prime Minister.
To help land that plane, the government asking former Prime Minister Stephen Harper for his advice.
We've got to kind of get something short-term worked out with the Trump administration, but this really is a wake-up call for this country to truly diversify its trade.
A sentiment BC's NDP premier agrees with.
The United States just finished putting the boots to the EU, sticking their finger in their eye, telling them that they weren't pulling their weight, that they're a bad partner. What better time for Canada to show up and say, we're a good partner, we want to work with you.
The Prime Minister and premiers have admitted that tariffs are likely here to stay, but Ontario views this as a warm-up to even bigger negotiations.
And then after we get this deal, so-called deal, August 1st, and then we face it again February 2026 on the USMCA deal.
Mr. President.
Despite the anger and uncertainty, Carney's optimistic that Canada's relationship with the U.S. can be fixed.
The United States and Canada can do many good things together. We have done that in the past. We can do more in the future.
Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is expected to be back in Washington this week, Donna, to continue negotiations with the Americans.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. The Prime Minister is fulfilling an election promise, lowering tolls on the Confederation Bridge to Prince Edward Island from around $50 to $20. The government is also cutting fares on ferries in Atlantic Canada. President Trump appears to be increasing pressure on the Russian president. He says there is no reason to keep waiting for progress to end the war in Ukraine and claims he's going to set a new deadline for Russia to stop its attacks. Trump has repeatedly claimed he can bring the war to a swift end. And as Jackson Prosco reports, he has yet to deliver.
The unending conflict brought another night of terror to Kyiv as Russian missiles struck an apartment building, wounding 8 people, including a 3-year-old girl.
I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him.
Increasingly frustrated, U.S. President Donald Trump issued a new demand to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Stop the fighting in the next 10 to 12 days.
I'm not so interested in talking anymore.
It's an abrupt about-face for Trump. Just 2 weeks ago, he offered Moscow a far more generous deadline.
We're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
But there's been no progress and no suggestion Putin is willing to bend.
There's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is.
It's still unclear what exactly Trump will do if the deadline isn't met.
But the problem here is it creates gray lines, not red lines. So whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, you look at these deadlines and it's hard to take them seriously because they're moving all the time.
Trump continues to make the vague threat of secondary sanctions targeting countries like China and India that still do business with Russia. Russia experts question whether he would really do it.
These are also countries where Trump is trying to reset or reestablish relationships.
The bigger pressure on Putin may come from U.S. plans to rapidly supply weapons to NATO for delivery to Ukraine, potentially making it tougher for Moscow to sustain its fight. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Russia's national airline canceled more than 50 flights today after an apparent cyber attack by pro-Ukrainian hackers. In a statement, the hacker group Silent Crow claimed responsibility for knocking out the airline's IT systems. They say they carried it out with the help of Belarusian hackers and cited Russia's war on Ukraine as the motivation. The group is threatening to release personal data of customers, and a criminal investigation is underway. Donald Trump had some success on a different conflict. Over the weekend, the U.S. president reached out to the leaders of Thailand and Cambodia, urging them to stop their escalating border dispute that has led to the deaths of at least 36 people. It appears both countries have agreed to a ceasefire.
This is a vital first step towards de-escalation and the restoration of peace and security.
Cambodia's Prime Minister and Thailand's acting Prime Minister came to the agreement after peace talks in Malaysia. The U.S. and China assisted in negotiations. The ceasefire came into effect at midnight local time, ending the 5-day conflict. About 300,000 people had fled their homes because of the violence. In Romania, at least 3 people have died after flash floods ripped through villages in the country's northeast. The region was hit with torrential rain and high winds overnight, causing 2 rivers to overflow, washing away roads, cars, and homes. Nearly 900 people have been displaced. Hundreds were rescued, including some by helicopter. Water in some rivers rose to record levels. In Germany, police now say a landslide was the cause of a deadly train derailment on Sunday. Authorities believe heavy rainfall at the time caused a nearby sewage shaft to overflow, likely triggering the slide that swept the train carriages off the tracks. 3 people were killed, including the train driver. More than 40 others were injured. A BC couple's frightening run-in with a grizzly. Coming up, the attack that left one of them in the hospital and the advice on how to stay safe. In northwestern BC, a man is recovering after fending off a cougar attack. It happened in the town of Smithers. Officials say the man was working outdoors near Lake Catlin on Saturday morning when a cougar approached him and swiped at his upper body. He told conservation officers the animal retreated after he punched it in the face. He was not seriously injured. Also in BC, a man in the Kootenays is recovering from serious injuries inflicted by a grizzly bear. He was cycling with his wife when it happened, and authorities say the fact they were carrying bear spray is likely what saved them. Neetu Garcha explains what happened and has some reminders on how to stay safe in bear country.
A man is recovering from urgent surgery after a grizzly bear attack. Conservation officers say the couple was e-biking west of Creston, BC when the wife saw a grizzly running towards her and then realized the second grizzly was attacking her husband. She used bear spray and both bears ran off. Officials have deemed the attack to be defensive with no evidence either bear was hunting the couple and are no longer trying to capture the bears.
I admire this couple for being as prepared as they were. I think they saved their own lives and they may have saved the lives of bears.
They took this video while hiking in Canada-U.S. Luckily, they weren't injured.
That was really frightening.
Neither of us have ever seen a grizzly in real life before.
Bear encounter experts say e-bikes are an issue because they're quiet and move fast.
We're concerned about e-bikes and increasing surprise encounters, which end up with the bear acting defensively, and rightly so.
To reduce the risk, she recommends people make noise like shaking a jar of rocks, stay alert, and always carry bear spray while knowing how to use it. Spray low in short bursts to create a cloud the bear can run into, and check the wind so the spray doesn't blow back.
Bears are usually pretty good. They're really good at coexisting with us if they have advance warning.
This is the 3rd attack that I know of in this valley in probably more than 30 years.
It's a shared wilderness, and officials say staying safe starts with remembering that. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
Vehicle thefts are down significantly across Canada, according to a new report from Equite Association, an organization that works to track and prevent insurance fraud and crime. In the first half of this year, vehicle thefts were down 19% compared to the same period last year. Ontario and Quebec saw the largest drops, down nearly 26 and 22%. Those two provinces saw the highest rates from 2021 to 2023, when vehicle thefts spiked during the pandemic. Diagnosing dementia ahead, why early detection is key, and the drugs doctors would like Health Canada to approve. It's important for people living with dementia to be diagnosed as early as possible to help them manage the disease as best they can. But a new study suggests it could take more than 3 years after symptoms are first noticed before most people get a proper diagnosis. Catherine Ward looks at what that delay can mean for families.
We need to do a better job of early diagnosis so that we can intervene in a meaningful way, both preventatively and reactively.
Dr. Sarah Mitchell knows firsthand the personal cost patients face when a dementia diagnosis flies under the radar.
That delay can lead to periods of uncertainty amongst the person and their family. Sometimes it can lead to job loss or other poor outcomes, including sometimes loss of relationships or social engagement, and a lot of uncertainty as to why these symptoms or why these changes in their life are happening.
New research shows globally, people living with dementia go undiagnosed on average for 3.5 years after symptoms are first noticed.
Timely diagnosis is also help them to manage symptoms well, provide with appropriate intervention and treatment.
As of the beginning of this year, more than 771,000 people in Canada are living with dementia, according to the Alzheimer's Society. The rising number due in part to people living longer.
We really need to be able to tackle the tsunami of dementia and Alzheimer's disease that is coming due to the increasing age of our population, due to the fact that we're getting better at treating other diseases that could hurt them.
However, clinicians in Canada are still waiting for Health Canada to approve some newer forms of treatment, including the use of drugs like lecanemab and donanemab.
These drugs, while they're not a cure for Alzheimer's disease, they can slow down the rate of decline by about 30% on average.
As a clinician in Canada where these drugs have not received Health Canada approval, we cannot give any information about whether to seek these drugs or not seek these drugs until we know what Canada's stance is.
Health Canada says lecanemab and donanemab are still under review and cannot share any timeline for when a decision will be reached. A hard reality for patients and families where any amount of time could make all the difference. Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
In her gold era, next, Summer MacIntosh picks up more hardware as she swims into the record books. BC tennis player Vasek Pospisil was overcome with emotion after his final match at the Canadian Open on Sunday. Pospisil was once ranked 25th in the world in men's singles, but his greatest achievements were in doubles. He won Wimbledon in doubles in 2014 and helped Canada win its first Davis Cup in 2022. Another Canadian is playing her last tournament this week. Montreal's Eugenie Bouchard plays tonight in her hometown. Two Canadians shared the podium today at the World Swimming Championships in Singapore. Summer MacIntosh won gold in the 200 individual medley, and Marie-Sophie Harvey took bronze. It is MacIntosh's second gold at these championships, and as Mike Armstrong explains, the 18-year-old has her sights set on much, much more.
There's aiming high, and then there's what Summer MacIntosh is doing. Her goal at these World Championships is to accomplish something no woman has ever done, to win 5 golds, literally a sweep of all her individual events. Monday's win in the 200-meter medley made her 2 for 2. Well, if winning every event seems like pressure, she's leaning into it. If you look very closely, you'll see she's painted 5 of her nails gold. Pressure's not a problem.
This is coming from Summer. You know, if they had betting, I'd be throwing some money down on that. That's for sure.
Now, MacIntosh's Monday medal gives her 10 at the Worlds in her career. That's already the most ever for a Canadian, and she's only 18 years old. But 5 golds in 1 championships has only ever been done by Michael Phelps, arguably the greatest ever. MacIntosh is moving herself into that stratosphere.
Summer MacIntosh is only getting better still.
This is how the swimming podcast Unfiltered Waters previewed these championships. Both hosts won multiple Olympic medals.
Summer MacIntosh is a once in a literal century athlete.
Yeah.
At the Canadian Nationals earlier this year, MacIntosh set 3 world records, enough that Phelps called to congratulate her.
We're almost treating it, okay, this is the norm because of Summer, but it's not that at all. It's just truly special.
MacIntosh is back in the pool for her next race Wednesday, but going 3 for 3 the rest of the week will be a challenge. That said, she's in it to win it all. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Wow, that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases De Winton, Alberta, Fox Valley, Saskatchewan, and Cipher Cove in Grand Lake, New Brunswick. Please keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.